Good evening, dear friends. National Gallery of Modern Art, Bangalore, Ministry of Culture, Government of India, in collaboration with Gandhi Center for Science and Human Values, welcomes you to today's slide talk presentation of religious practices as seen on Indus Valley seals by reputed Indologist Rekha Rao. The speaker will be introduced by Ambassador Retired Alan Nazareth, who prior to that will present a brief overview of the Indus Valley civilization and its importance to India. Now may I call upon him on the dais.
Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to see so many of you here. Many thanks for coming. Now, this is one of the series of lectures that we have been having since I took over as chairman of the Gandhi Center for Science and Human Values in May this year. The lecture series is called India's Heritage in the Spirituality and Scientific Fields. The lecture series was launched with my delivering a lecture right here on the spiritual heritage of India. We then had a series of lectures in the field of science. It was led and launched by the very well-known Indian astronomer, Professor Jayant Narlikar. He spoke about why study astronomy. Then we followed it up with 3 lectures on the same day. It was like a seminar, again in the field of astrology, in the field of astronomy. How from earliest times our sages discovered such great secrets of the universe. People seem to think that science and astronomy and everything began when the apple dropped on Newton's head, which is so completely untrue, because science was born very, very many ages ago. In fact, the historian of civilization, Will Durant, has pointed out that in India, since all the religious practices had to be done at an auspicious time, and the auspicious time depended really on the conjunction of the planets. From earliest times, people kept looking at the stars. So astronomy was like a handmaid of religion. And in their observations of the movement of the planets and of the stars, they discovered great secrets. So this is part of the whole series. Now, in this one, we have started this now. Again, in this case, we are looking at the religious heritage as seen in Indus Valley seals. Now, the Indus Valley is of great importance to India. Harappa was discovered only in 1910. Until then, it was widely believed that India's recorded history and its religious books, Rig Veda and others, were composed about the year 1500, after the Aryans and Indo-European people, as they are called. In fact, they were Caucasian, had come, I think, from the Caucasus in Iran. One group went north, one group came south. Amazingly, the ones who came to India became philosophers. The one who went north became warriors. So from earliest times, India has been a deeply spiritual country. The amazing thing is, when Harappa was discovered, all of a sudden it put our history back by almost 3,000 years and made India's civilizational history contemporaneous with Sumeria and with Egypt, which Egypt, of course, is the oldest, maybe goes back almost to 5,000 BC. The pyramids just outside of Egypt, I was ambassador there for 3 years. It was mind-boggling for me. The pyramids outside Egypt were built in 2650 BC. And by the time they built those pyramids at Gaza, they've been building pyramids for at least 1,000 years, because the ones you can see in Egypt are of such perfect symmetry. and so well, what shall I say, fixed, not just to the in the four cardinal directions, not geographical directions, but the four cardinal magnetic directions of the Earth, it has been discovered. So the Indus Valley civilization is very important to us. And it's a very remarkable civilization. It was, compared to the other two old civilizations, the other two, had, the access was only 600 miles all along the river. And in Egypt, it was maybe 15 miles on either side of the river. Everything else was the desert. Same thing to a way in Iraq, that is Sumeria. But here in India, now that they've discovered it, it was a very, very extensive period. As you see in this map, it covers all of southern Afghanistan, much of Balochistan, and right down to Gujarat, all along this. It was so extensive, in fact, that Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were twin capitals. And the amazing thing is the seals, the most perfect seals you could imagine. This is a picture of Mohenjo-daro, sort of the distant view. This is an aerial view of Mohenjo-daro. Just see the town planning, the way the streets have been laid. There were houses built with brick. There was drainage. This is another view of Mohenjo-daro. Now, this is an amazing thing. These people were not only very sophisticated in terms of urban planning, street laying, drainage, etc. They were also very cultured. One of the amazing things they have found there, this is called the dancing girl. Mohenjo-daro must be about at least 2,500 years old. Even at that time, they had dancers, and the girl, as you see, is fully sort of ornamented. This now, if we come to Harappa, the Indus Valley civilization is also referred to as the Harappan civilization because Harappa was the first city that was excavated. Mohenjo-daro, of course, is a much bigger city, but was discovered later. But often the Indus Valley civilization is referred to as the Harappan civilization. This is the Great Bath, of the Harappan Great Bath, with steps built into it. There must have been water in it. And the same tradition continues even today. Now, look at the seal. This is an Indus Valley seal. And this is called the one-horned bull, which could also be the unicorn. And on top of that, you will see the Indus Valley script. This has, now here again are a number of these seals. On top of each of them, there is a script. Most probably, these were the names of the people to whom the goods belonged. There was a lot of trading relations between the Indus Valley civilization and Sumeria. And when they sent goods, apparently, every consignment had a seal with the name either of the sender or of the recipient. Now, the amazing thing is, as has been pointed out, over this very extensive area of the Indus Valley civilization, they have found about 4,000 seals of that time. Now, when they have weighed these and scrutinized them, all of them are of the same weight. And has been pointed out that at so early a time, over such an extensive period, that seals could be so absolutely perfectly of the same weight shows the great amount of technical expertise and of governance expertise. That over such a large area, you could have such a uniformity of seals, which were partly currency, which were partly seals for identification. Now, this is sort of shows the trading route from Sumeria, which is sort of the mouth of the Euphrates and the Tigris River, flowing into what is now called the Persian Gulf, all along there and to India. In the part where you see this, that was another civilization, a minor civilization called Melucca, which is present-day Oman. And apparently copper used to come from there, and there were great sailors. A lot of the trade, in fact, was moved by the Omanis. And we've heard the story of Sindbad the sailor. He was from Oman. Now, this is a seal, a Sumerian seal, which I have shown here because it has, I found from my research, I found that in this particular seal, you see the single-horned bull. You find these bulls. Now, they didn't have bulls in Sumeria. They must have had horses and other types. So the fact that you see this particular seal in Sumeria is given as an indication that there was, in fact, trading relations between the Indus Valley and Sumeria. This is Sir John Marshall, who was the Director General of the archaeological, what is it called, Department of India. It was set up in 1861. A man called Cunningham was the first Director General. But it was during the period of Sir John Marshall that Harappa was discovered. Though the person who actually discovered it was this man called Banerjee. So we have got to be grateful to him, and certainly also to the British. The British did a lot of damage to India, but they did some good things to India, and one of the great things I think we have to be grateful to them for is that they helped us to discover our past and to put back our history by at least to almost 3,000 years. Now, I don't want to take more time because we have Dr. Rekha Rao to speak here this evening. I'm very grateful that she has accepted our invitation. I must tell you that she and I have one serious difference of opinion, but differences of opinion are always welcome. I believe that the Vedas were composed later than the Indus Valley civilization. She believes, and she's going to present to you her evidence that it was prior, that the Vedas were composed prior to the Indus Valley civilization. However, I have the right to my opinion, and she has the right to hers. She's a great scholar, so we greatly look forward to listening to you, Dr. Rekha Rao. I thank you for coming, and I'm really so happy to meet you for the first time today, though we have been in correspondence for a long time. Please welcome to the stage.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of religious practices in Indus Seals has been my most favorite research topic. The small seals, which are hardly 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters, they play a significant role, not only in reflecting the socio-religious practices that were in vogue some 4,000 years back in the land of Bharatavarsha, they also depict the earliest form of Vedic deities, as described in Vedas in a personified form. The term religious is from the word religion. As we all know, it is dharma, the code of conduct, the righteous points, and religious practices is the dharmic kriya. It was called yagna in Vedic period. Yagna was an act of worship, was performed by the priestly class on behalf of anyone to invoke the deities, the devatas, express their reverence, gratitude to gods. It was also to fulfill personal aspirations and also for the betterment of community. Yagna involved 3 major elements like a host of deities, the devatas, a flawless recitation of Vedic stanzas called mantras, and the oblation offered to the deities, observing a ritual pattern. While observing a lot of pictures, seal pictures, I noticed the picture of a bird altar, the first symbol. The picture of bird altar, it's called Senachiti. In two of the seals, I noticed this, about which I had seen pictures and I had read in newspapers also about that. It was especially constructed, this was a fire altar constructed only during big-scale yagnas like Soma Yagna, Rajasuya, Ashwamedha, Mahavrata, and so on. Since I had read about bird altar also before, I could identify that this bird altar is there and the theme of seals may be connected to yagnas. This gave the clue for me that the theme of seals are connected to Vedic yagnas. So I made a comparative study of 200 seal pictures on one side and keeping Rigveda on the other side. I was convinced that the contents of Veda, like the deities, the procedures, it was all conveyed in an epitomized form in the Indus Seals. I tried to understand why they were so much coded and so much epitomized. The reasons were, Rigveda was voluminous. It was 10,600 verses only in Rigveda, and the other three Vedas were also several thousands of verses. The procedure of yagnas were very elaborate, very meticulous, and there was no script yet. All data had to be memorized, and it was a hard task for the priest to memorize the entire data. Mistakes in recitation of procedures or yagnic procedures were not tolerated. So the essence of yagna and the information on recitation patterns were documented in the form of seals for the use of priestly class. In my opinion, Rigveda was an oral tradition before. It predates the Indus or Harappan seals. Because when I made a comparative study, I noticed some points. The Vedas were the oldest literary source of Vedic religion, and the seals were the oldest archaeological records of Vedic period reflecting religious aspects. Secondly, script had not evolved when Vedas were compiled. Vedas were recited, and though the communication was through verbal transmission. The script had not yet evolved even when the seals were made. The thoughts, ideas were conveyed through symbols and pictures. Vedic poetry is composed in various meters called chandas. A pictorial form of various chandas patterns are seen in Indus Seals. The earliest depiction of Vedic deities are described in Rigveda, and the same, the records of Vedic deities in both figurative and symbolic form are in the Indus Seals. Then Vedas describe the rituals of yagna because Vedas is a manual of rituals. The seals depict the deities of rituals and yagna. With this background, I proceeded to study the seal pictures. So my research hypothesis was symbols and motifs in Indus Seals depicted Vedic rituals and deities. Now, a brief note on the seals. I could notice there were three types of seals. One, the first variety was the square slabs with the picture of a bull, single-horned bull, and some symbols inscribed. Some were just inscriptions, symbols inscribed. And the third one was a picture with humans and deities. It looked like an action tableau, some action depicted in one kind of seals. So the seals, they were hardly 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters, weighing 9 to 10 grams, and made of a stone slab called schist. They have the figure of the bull. 75% of the seal area was reserved for bull structure, and 25% for symbols. There was a remarkable level of standardization in the shape and structure of the symbols inscribed. The bull picture And a small structure in front of it had very intricate designs, the decorations on the bull, and the intricate patterns on the structure in front of the bull were very sophisticated. They were comparable to miniature paintings. Since Yagna, the ritual practice of Vedic religion, had three aspects. As I said, it's the deities, the mantras, and the oblations that were offered following a ritual process. I present my presentation following this order. First topic is the host of deities, Vedic deities, how they are depicted in seals. Then second is a flawless recitation of Rig Veda, who recited it and how it was depicted in seals. Thirdly, the religious practices and how these practices are depicted in seals. Coming to the first point, the deities. Deities, the concept of deities was an outcome of thoughts between the seen and the unseen. God was conceived as unseen superhuman power, but an equation of faith existed between the gods and humans. In Rig Veda, the sages have contemplated on many interesting topics like the 5 elements, the birth of universe, the rhythm and punctuality of nature, and the walk. They have wondered who gave so many words for the compilation of Vedas. So coming to 5 elements, there were a class of nomadic sages called Ratyas who lived along with the priestly class in Vedic period. They were called Keishins or Ratyas, and they are described in Rig Veda. They worshipped the elements of nature, but they spoke unrefined language. When the priestly class who spoke Samskrita, the refined Sanskrit, the elite class of priests, they gave name and form to these 5 elements. It was a challenging task to give a form to the unseen power. The imagination was transformed to reality pictures for the first time in Indus Seals, because the understanding shifted from understanding what was heard and reality pictures. First deity mentioned is Agni in Rig Veda. The prominent deities were Indra and Agni. It was a challenging task again to see the power element as personified form. The confused sages have said in first and fifth mandala of Rig Veda, Agni, how do we ignite you, we see you as fire, but we want to see you in human form. We don't know how to project you. The stanza goes, Manushvat Tvani Dhimahi, Manushvat Samidhimahi, Agni Manushvat Devan Devayate Yajam. We ignite you as fire. We don't know how to project you in human form. We see you active like human beings. You live in every house as Vastospati, the lord of the house. And Devan Devayate Yajam, we revere you. So we give you the human form only. This was how the very first personification of deities probably was created in Indus Seals. It was followed by other Vedic deities in personified forms. All deities were welcome, and all deities were like humans. They were welcome and asked to be seated on the Barhis mat in the Yagnashala and accept the oblations that were offered to them. So, how to identify deities in the seals? The priestly class who made the seals, they observed certain dress code. The terms, Rig Veda says God is supreme. Terms like Magavan, Devan, Devayate, Devendra, all these were meaning supreme power. They were very abstract in the concept. They had to give it, they had to picturize that abstract thought. So supremacy got depicted with the headgear of horns. All deities, most of the deities are seen with bull's horn on the head. Horn in Sanskrit is Shringa, the peak point, and stands for wealthy and supremacy also. It was projected as headdress of bull's horn. Devata, so in this seal we can see the horn depicted as a headdress. The Devata is from the word Div, meaning luminous. This was depicted in seals as bright Nishka, the breastplate on the, we can see the breastplate, and he was Hiranya Bahu. That means golden arm bands were depicted on gods because the expression was already in Rig Veda. The gods were given a pedestal called Asandi. It was in middle part was woven with munja grass, and all gods were represented on this Asandi seal. So the suffix pati was attached to represent deities, to address deities like Prajapati, Brahaspati, Pashupati, Kshetrapati, Vastospati. Origin of polytheistic form of Vedic gods were carved in seals for the first time. Coming to the pictures of deities, the first picture, it is called Pashupati thus far, but in my analysis it is Prajapati. He is surrounded by his creation of the wild animals, the domestic animals at the bottom, and the Vayavyan. It is described in Purusha Sukta, Vayavyan, Aranyan, Gramasya, all the domestic, the airborne animals, everything was created by Prajapati. So Prajapati was the master creator. So this still is Prajapati, surrounded by his creation. Then the next picture, it is Brihaspati being ignited. Brihaspati is god of light. This seal refers to a fire ritual of a Soma Yagna. There are two figures, one sitting and one in the pot. Both are having horns, that means both are deities. This symbolizes Agni carrying oblation to invoke Brihaspati. Because Brihaspati was the light form of knowledge. We see 7 figures, these are 7 Saptahotris. So this is Brihaspati being invoked. Then the next picture is Indra is depicted as Vajrabahu. Next picture, please. Okay, I'm sorry. This is Rudra. This is actually Rudra's, Pashupati is the epithet of Rudra. This seal represents Rudra because Pashupati was the caretaker of only cattle. Pashu refers only to cattle, not to wild animals. There is the difference, Pashu and Ruga. He is Deva Bishaja. He was the physician, celestial physician. He collected all the herbs and gave medicines to the cattle as well as to men. So this is Rudra, as this is Pashupati. The next picture is Kshetrapati. Kshetrapati means the lord of a plot. We see on top a symbol, a framed structure, that is Kshetra, the area. The god of area is Kshetrapati, and Kshetrapati happens to be an epithet of Rudra also. The next picture is the deity of Indra. This is Indra because in Rig Veda he is called, at many places he is addressed as Vajrabahu. Vajra is the thunderbolt. Indra had to fight with the demon Vritra to release all the clouds. So the architect, Krishna, made thunderbolt for Indra. Veda describes how it is multiple jointed weapon that was made for Indra. In this seal, while personifying Indra, they attach thunderbolt as his arms only. So he is again seated on Asandi, the pedestal at the base, and he has the horn of the headdress to depict it's a deity. The next picture is again Rudra shooting the arrows at demons. The episode of Rudra killing the Tripurasura, this episode is again described in detail in Rig Veda. The 3 citadels were occupied by Asuras, and Rudra, he used, for the first time a weapon is depicted in Indus Seal. He used his pinaka, it was a stringless bow, it was also called Jadoda. He shot the arrow and recovered the citadels that were occupied by demons. So the demon coming out is depicted like a wild boar. So this is again the picture of Rudra. Many symbols were also used in Indus Seals to depict deities. In the next picture, picture 11 please. we see the symbols being used like this. This is Dyava Prithvi. Deity Dyava Prithvi is referred so many times in Rig Veda. Dyava Prithvi is heaven and earth. So they are still not personified. It was in symbolic form. The Purusha Sutta says how the Hiranyagarbha rose and Prajapati divided it into two parts. He stretched it infinitely and he created the zone for earth, the zone for heaven, and the mid zone, the firmament. And he placed all the mortals on earthly zone, all the immortals on the heaven zone, and the mid zone was for the benefit of both. So this is Dyava Prithvi symbolized. The heaven and earth was considered a sacred space. The design of mandala, the almond shape mandala, has been used in Indus Seal itself to depict sacred space. The next picture, it is the Soma plant. That's the Soma twig as depicted in pottery. The Soma plant itself is depicted as Soma deity. Soma deity was the god of intelligence. So this is how the Soma twig is depicted in symbolic form to represent deity. Then the next symbol is Agni. Agni was always upward moving. Agni is depicted like upward triangle. This is Agni. Agni is always depicted like an upward triangle. So Agni in all yagnas was offered 3 ladles of ghee. This is what is depicted, the container containing a thin ladle that's called the struva, and 3 oblations are offered to Agni. This is like a compound symbol representing Agni Srishtakrut. In many seals we can see these 3 pictures together. Now, understanding how the priests are represented. Priests, according to the Varna classification, Brahmanas by tradition studied Vedas. The Vedic scholars had to memorize and understand the entire Samhitas and undergo rigorous training in Vedangas. Vedangas were the 6 very elaborate ancillary disciplines involving Vyakarana, that's grammar, phonetics, meter, chandas, etymology, astronomy, and so on to gain perfection. The Vedic scholar, after his studies and training, was declared as a priest. It was only after the initiation called Diksha he was eligible to participate in yagnas. Being aware of their predominant role in society, the elite Brahmin priestly class maintained themselves as men of performance the religious rites, strengthening the link between humans and gods. Now, coming to the picture of priests, seal 14. The priests are depicted very simply, unlike the deities. They wore simple cotton clothes. Their arms were plain, simple, and the hair was tied into a bun. Even to this day, we have the priestly class tying their hair into a bun. So we can see this. The other picture belongs to the nomadic sages, which I described as Ratyas. They wore animal skin. We can see the contrast in the dress code. They wore matted hair that is depicted on head, and they were worshippers of Shiva. They didn't accept Indra. So this is the Ratyas. They were fearless and roamed about like animals in forest. So this is the dress code of priestly class. The priests are also depicted as single-horned bull in Indus Seals. The Hotri priest also symbolically depicted the motif of a single-horned bull. The reasons were, Rigveda has many stanzas saying, bull, you are the priest. Tvamagne Vrishabha, that means Agni, you are the Vrishabha. Agni was called Vrishabha because it meant the best, the eminent, strong, and vigorous. Rigveda starts with the verse Agni Mile Purohitam Yagnasya Deva Ritvijam. That means Agni, you are the Purohita, you are the priest, you are the Deva Ritvija, you are the celestial priest also. So we understand there were 2 types of priests, the Deva Ritvija, the celestial priest, and the human Hotri, human priest. Agni carried the oblations that was offered in fire to the gods in heaven. But Agni had to be ignited every time by a human Hotri. So both, because carrying forward the addresses that are given in Rig Veda, bull, you are the priest. From Agni Vrishabha, all they follow. And when seals were made, they gave a motif of single horn bull to represent priest, Hotri. Now coming to the accessories of a priest. The priest, we see, now we know bull is a priest, is a motive, and it's always with a single horn. This single horn is called Kanduyani. That's the horn of a black antelope. When the Hotri priest enters Yagnashala, he has to stamp the earth of Yagnashala with the Kanduyani, with a single horn piece of antelope horn, and stamp his forehead on that. And then that was tied on his upper garment. A Dikshita priest was not supposed to scratch when he had itching sensation. He has to use Kanduyani as a scratcher. And that was tied to the upper garment. In a yagna, a chief priest was identified by seeing the Kanduyani in his upper garment. So this single horn is the representation of what the priest is supposed to have. Then the priest wore Yagnopavita also. Yagnopavita is depicted in the seals like this. According to social status, it was single stand, double stand in the middle picture, and three-standed. It was according to the married or unmarried status. So all these are depicted in the single horn bull picture. Then coming to the accessories, so what the priests held in their hand, all priests had a big ladle in their hand as a prop. Next picture. The ladles are depicted in the tail part of the bull. Because ladles have a long handle, the tail part is made use of in that. These are the various types of ladles that we see in Yagna. The wooden one is Sruk. In the first picture, we see the Valasruva, the first tail. It has a square design in the tail mark. That is called Valasruva. That was a filter that was woven using the hair of a cow's tail hair. And that was used to filter Soma after crushing Soma juice in Soma Yagna. So this is Valasruva. This Valasruva is taken from this picture, from this particular seal, the middle picture. Then the last picture is a small, slim, small ladle with a small ball. That is called Sruva. Sruva is the small ladle with which offering of ghee is given to Agni. So the bottom row, the first picture is Sruk. Sruk is with a bigger ball. We can very clearly see the Sruk, what is depicted in wood is exactly the same what is depicted in the tail. Then the other one, the last one is the Akarshapalaka, it is called. It is like a snake's head. It's called Uddharani. Most of the Hindus will have it in their house. It's a long-handled snake. It comes with a snake's head. So this is Akarshapalaka or Uddharani is depicted like this in seals. Now, after knowing about the dress code of the accessories of priests, we need to know how the priests, recitation methods by priests. How did they recite mantras? So it was the Hotri priest who recited Rig Veda. After Veda Pata, after the Diksha initiation, the priest was eligible to participate in a yagna. It is interesting to know how the priests identify which part of Rig Veda containing 10,600 verses was to be recited for a particular yagna. Coming to in the next picture, in the first picture we see this is the structure that is always in front of the bull, and all single horn bull have this structure. So far not much work has been done on this structure. I have analyzed this to be the structure of walk. Walk is the speech. This structure has 4 parts: a slender pillar, a crucible, half moon shaped crucible. Above that is a frame. Above that is always the bull's fixed. Always it is like that in all seals. So Rigveda in 1.164.45 has a very brilliant verse about walk. It says, it starts with Chatvari Vak Paramita. That means speech is measured out in 4 divisions. They have, in Rigveda, they have given it like a riddle. 3 are hidden inside, 1 is out. Who can tell this? So that the 4th one, they have also mentioned that to be Vaikari. The Turiya, 4th is Vaikari. So which comes out as speech in the final form. The 4 divisions depicted, since Vaikari is addressed in Rigveda, the other 3 parts are definitely the Para, Pashyanti and Madhyama, the stages of walk. The slender pillar is the walk at the bottom. There is a small pillar in the base. The slender pillar is walk. The main pillar, the main support of yajna is the chanting of mantras, because without mantra there was no yajna at all. So this suggests it is the walk pillar. Then above that is the half moon shaped crucible. This is called Vagambrana. Vagambrana is also mentioned in Rigveda. Vagambrana is the container of words. Rigvedic sages have contemplated who gives the knowledge of so many words. They themselves are given the answer to. It was God Brihaspati, the god of light. He gave all the words. He placed it in a crucible and gave it to sages. The sages took 2-3 words, made a phrase, made a line, made a sentence, made a stanza of 4-5 lines, and then they made a poetry, and thus the mandalas of Veda was compiled. So this Vagambrina has lot of designs in it. Next picture. These designs represent the Shiksha part of Vedanga. That means how the Vedic scholars were to practice Veda. It is the permutation and combination practices of words and sentences as pada, pada. The practices were Jatapata in a braided fashion, Malapata. Next picture, please. Then the Malapata. Malapata means in a line like that, and then this is Dvajapata, like a flag shape. The Vedanga practices observed 8 major types of practicing methods. 2 sentences, 2 lines of every stanza was repeated so many times. They kept one word and went around that. These repetitions were also given in yajna performance because repetition of mantras gave physical, psychological and spiritual benefits for the performer and listeners too. So yajnas were given importance. Now coming to the other picture, this is the phrase of Chandas. This is also studied as Vedanga. Chandas means meter. Vedic poetry is all the mandalas are constructed in definite Vedic Chandas. Every deity is invoked with a different Chandas pattern. Here we see above the umbrella this square frame. We see it's a square frame but has many smaller squares. Each small square represents pada, that means the word. 4 words made a pada, a line. So the 4 lines, 4 padas made a vritta, that is a stanza. So the frame represents the stanza of a particular Chandas pattern. So this Chandas pattern, it could be 4 lines or 6 lines, 7. There are the varying number. It was in varying numbers of lines as well as the words. The number of words of small squares in a line and the stanza define the Chandas meter. Chandas meter were of 7 types major. Jagati, Gayatri, Ushnika, Brihati, Trishtup they were all regulated by the number of words in a stanza. So this square pattern definitely says about the meter pattern. This is the Brihati meter, first one. The last one is called Kanya. It's the shortest Chandas. It has only 12 words. Only 3 lines of each. We can notice 4 squares and 3 lines. Next picture says these priests, recited the chandas in varying tones. Some were to be sung in a louder tone, some in a low tone, and some were in middle tone. They were called Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita. These are the tonal variations which the priest recited the stanza. The first one we see, the bull's head is lifted up. Many seals have this picture. It means the recitation is going in a high pitch. It was like a command given. The line on the neck also depicts only 2 lines. That means it's a short phrase. The frame also, the chandas is also short. That means it was a short command that the priest is giving in a high tone. In many, when we go through yajna procedure, the Hotri declares, is the ghee ready, is the oblation material ready, are the barhis grass laid on the Vedi. Such commands were given in a loud voice. The second one is Anudatta. Many of the Yajurvedic stanzas, while igniting fire, it was supposed to be sung in a very low tone so that the audience cannot hear it. So this is Anudatta. The meter frame is kept on the ground. The various lines on the neck also suggest it was a continuous recitation and it was not audible. The third picture is Swarita. Swarita means a middle tone. Most of the Rigvedic stanzas were given in Swarita tone, neither high nor low. Now, coming to the yajna procedures, the important topic. Yajnas were mainly of 3 varieties: Havit Yajna, Soma Yajna, and Grihya Yajna. Havit Yajna was the yajna in which grains, milk, curds, milk products were all offered in fire to Agni and in an altar. I present one example of each of these groups. Coming to the first Havir Yajna. Havir Yajna were also 7 major types, and the first one is called Agnadeya. Agnadeya means Agni Adeya, the installation of fire. This seal gives a complete picture of Agnadeya ritual. Agnadeya is the installation of fire was conducted for 2 days, the preliminary day and the day of installing fire. That was mostly on full moon or new moon day. Even though it was 2 days, the preparation was hectic. It went long before because the altars were to be constructed before and the lot of samidhi wood was to be collected. So the preliminary preparations were long. So in this seal, we can see in the middle there is a rectangular but hourglass shaped structure. This is Vedi. Vedi is the sacred space that was excavated in the Yagnashala on which Barhis means the sacred grass was laid. On that, the tools, the oblation materials, everything was kept. Then to the east of Vedi, to the east of Vedi was the Ahavaniya altar, the square-shaped altar constructed. Ahavaniya was the altar in which oblation for deities was offered. Then on the other side, to the south, was the circular Garapatya altar constructed. So we can see the Garapatya here. And to the south was the bow-shaped Dakshinagni. Dakshinagni was the bow-shaped altar in which oblations for Pitru was laid. So these fire altars were never interchanged. In this, and fire was always installed in the altar in a standing position. So on the day of full moon day, fire was created by attrition and the fire was carried in an ukka pot. First the Garapatya was ignited. After from Garapatya, the fire stick was taken and the Ahavaniya, the square-shaped square altar was ignited. And again, from Garapatya only fire was fetched and the bow-shaped Dakshinagni was installed. This is how the yajna was depicted in Indus Seals. A goat was sacrificed before in the name of Agni, and the grains and milk products were offered in Agni. The grain is depicted in the last corner picture. There is a small picture of grain. The grains were offered in altars. And these altars were supposed to be maintained for the whole year. So next picture, we see this is again the picture of Vedi, it is always hourglass shaped. This is how a yagna is in procedure even to this day. We can see the hourglass shaped Vedi on which barhis is laid. The square ahavaniya is ignited with fire sticks, and we see the bow shaped, the circular altar, and so this is the depiction of heavy yagna in Indus Seals. Coming to the next yagna, the Soma yagna. Soma yagna, the speciality of Soma yagna was the Soma sticks were fetched from Mujavat hills, and it was crushed and the juice was offered to Indra. Soma yagna, though was conducted for 5 days, it was a part of many big scale yagnas like Mahavrata, Rajasuya and Atiratra, Mahavrata, all these yagnas involved the construction of bird altar. This bird altar, in the seal, it is called Senachiti. It's the hawk-shaped altar. It was not necessarily only hawk-shaped. There are Ratha Chakra Chiti, which is circular, even and the bucket-shaped Drona Chiti. We see these altars even to this day in Harappa site. So this construction of this fire altar took 1 full year. That means the yagna, big scale yagnas went through for 1 full year, but the Soma pressing was for only 5 days. In the 5 days, the first 2 days were preliminaries, and on the 3rd day, next picture, on the 3rd day, a fire ritual called Pravargya was conducted. Pravargya is the invoking of god of light Brihaspati. It was a purificatory rite. We can see god was ignited invoked in a handmade pot. The pot, big pot, what we see is called Mahavira. The Mahavira was always placed on a circular mound, a mound of circular platform, and god was invoked in that. We see 2 figures, 2 deities, or with the horn. This is Agni. Since he is the celestial priest, he is invoking the deity Brihaspati of Pravargya. So it was mandatory that Saptahotris, the 7 priests, chanted recitation in the Pravargya ritual. In Pravargya, superheated ghee was of very high temperature. Milk was sprinkled on that, and it was made to explode like fire. The fire was conceived to be the appearance of Brihaspati. Again, it was a purificatory ritual. Next slide. In this picture, we can see how fire pillar was created. This is a Pravargya ritual that was conducted in 1975 in a place called Panjal of Kerala, Panjal Atiratra. We see the Mahavira pot there, placed on the circular mound, and the barhis laid on that. And here we see how the fire pillar is created, and we see how Saptahotris are chanting the recitations. This is Pravargya ritual. This is the 3rd and 4th day of Soma Yagna. On the 5th day, Soma sticks were crushed. Next picture. The Soma sticks, a bundle of 6 sticks was used in the midday pressing. The 6 sticks are depicted in the seal. This is called Amshu. These sticks were previously soaked in purified water, and the sticks were, first there was a stone called Uparava, the resonance, stone of resonance, or it was dug in the earth also. On that, the second symbol represents in the seal the dovetail shaped board that is called Adhisavana Phalaka. On the resonance stone, the board was placed. On that, the 6 Amshu sticks were placed, and it was crushed continuously with the recitation of Samagana. The Brihati and Samagana is depicted in this structure. And after that, a copious flow of Soma juice was collected. The Soma was collected in a container, and it was offered to Indra. In these pictures, the Soma Yagna in progress, we see the dovetailed, the board that is played on resonance holes. Resonance holes are dug in the earth only here, On that, the holes were made because the sound while crushing was an invitation call to Indra to come from heaven to accept the Soma drink. So after the Soma crushing, the copious flow of large quantity was offered to Indra. Indra was very fond of Soma because Soma juice was an invigorating drink. Indra was pampered so much because the demon Rudra had hoarded all the clouds and there was no rain. So Indra was pampered and prayed for rains. So they pampered him. One of the Rigveda says, Rigvedic stanza 1.8.7 says, his belly, drinking the deepest draught of Soma, swells like an ocean. As I said, what they read in Veda had to be translated into pictorial form. We can see the huge belly of Indra that has swollen. This is the comparison to metaphor-like thing to ocean. Indra is again seated on Asandi and with Vajrabahu with the headrest. So this is Indra after consuming Soma juice. This completes this is the Soma Yagna procedure. Coming to the last Yagna, next picture, the Grihya Yagna. Grihya Yagna samskaras observed from birth to death. Mostly, head of the family performed this. I have chosen the last part, the death rituals. This is called Pitrumeda rituals, that is post-death rituals. The Pitru is depicted to be seated on a tree. Pitru, after that death, did not belong to the earthly zone. He was believed to be in a higher upper world, and it was called Pretatma after death. He did not belong to earthly zone. He was seated on a silk cotton tree or Yamadruma tree. These are very well detailed in Rigveda itself. They are always seen in sitting posture. Even the posture is described in Veda, that they sit with bended knees, and they always hold hand in Pitrutirtha. This is the Pitrutirtha. This is the hand gesture in which the sons gave oblation to Pitrus and the Pitrus received oblation in this gesture. So Pitrus are depicted with Pitrutirtha hand gesture in all seals. And these Pitrus are depicted with extra long arms because they could access the oblation that was given by sons from any height. So Pitrus are always with long arms in this particular sitting posture only, and sitting always on Yamadruma, that is the silk cotton tree. It's a thorny tree. And we, in the second picture, on top we see the sun coming with big urns. There are also 10 marks, dots like. That is the Asti Sanchayana ritual. That means after 10th day, on the 11th day, the sun comes with big urns. He collects all the half burnt or unburnt or overcharred bones, whatever it is. He collects the bones of Pitru in these urns, and then they recrush it with butter and offer it to Agni. That is called Asti Sanchayana. The end part is called Punardahana. It's called, either it was Punardahana or it was also buried under Palasha or Shami tree. We have seals of the urns being buried under a tree also. So this is the death ritual. Immediately after death, the next picture, after death, the annual ceremony was very meticulously observed. This was called Shraddha. Shraddha is, it's also called Parvana Shraddha. In annual ceremony, 3 generations of Pitrus were invoked. So we see so many seals are with 3-headed bulls. Each head belongs to a different group of animal. One is 2-horn, one is an antelope, one is single horn. So these 3 heads represent 3 types of priests belonging to 3 Vedas. And these 3, in a Shraddha Karma, even to this day, they sit in different directions. That's why the head is given different directions. So in all these seals, we see head in different directions and 3 priests representing the 3 generations of Pitrus. And in this seal, we see even now, when Shraddha Karma is in progress, they are offered with a cup. The cup was made of mud or metallic. In that sesame seeds were put, and 2 Pavitra blades, the purificatory blades, were kept. We see 3 vessels there. In that, we see the 2 blades. These are the vessels that are offered to the Shraddha priests. So with this, we can understand that the bull is a representation of a priest. Pictures of all yagnas are documented in Indus Seals. But I gave only one example of the 3 major types of yagnas. So coming to conclusion, the end part. Conclusion is point number 1. This is in my reading, my analysis. Indus Seals are archaeological artifacts of Vedic rituals. Point number 2, yagnas and deities are depicted in Indus Seals. Third point, Indus Seals were used by priestly class as guides for yagnas. Fourth point is single-horned bull is a concept of a priest. And finally, the depiction of a bull has, the single-horned bull seal has 3 units, bull picture, the manger, and the symbol inscribed. All these 3 are interlinked. So making an attempt to decipher only the script part is a bit misleading. The other picture ought to be considered while deciphering the Indus Seals. So if you are interested in further reading, I encourage you to please take a look at the 3 books that I have published on Indus Seals, that is Symbolography, Dictionary of Indus Seals, and Depiction of Vedic Seals. These books are available for purchase on Amazon.com, and you can also get a printed version if you are interested by contacting me, and my email address is rekhasubarao@gmail.com. So, thank you all. I would like to sincerely thank Dr. Alan Nazareth for giving me this opportunity and encouragement to present this research work on Indus Seals. I would like to thank all the audience for listening to me for my presentation. And lastly, I would like to thank the staff of National Gallery of Modern Arts. Thank you all. See, there are, Silva Sutra describes what is called sacred space, how it is to be constructed. It is constructed on the basis of Vesika Pisces, as it was termed later, but we have Vesika Pisces, the sacred space, as far back as Indus Seals. Silva Sutra gives the details of all this. This is the construction of, how sacred space is created. First, a circle is drawn. On the center of another circle is on the circumference of the first circle. And then when that is drawn, you get a space in between, like this. The sacred space, this is another mandorla. Each one, so this is the construction of Vesika Pisces is described in Silva Sutra. And then Silva Sutra also designs how a fish design is to be drawn. That is the fish. We have many seals with I wonder if I have. Yeah, in picture 15 we have fish symbols. Picture 15, right? We have many fish symbols. This Silva Sutra describes in detail about the construction of Meena. It is called construction of Meena. How with the Silva is the thread and the stick. With that, they draw the line, how to construct an ark, how the Meena was created. The design of fish was supposed to hold sacred liquids, anything sacred. So in Vedic time, the sacred liquid was milk. So in my analysis, this fish symbol represents liquid, sacred liquid, that is milk and milk products, or there are 9 varieties of fish designs. These all represent the various forms of milk and milk products that were used in Yagna. So this is based on that. And even in Agni, China, the bird altar you mean. Bird altar was constructed in a very definite pattern. The length, the height, the structure, the rectangular shape, everything was prescribed in Shilva Sutra. Yeah. Pythagoras theorem is also depicted in, is also explained in Shilva Sutra. I have a book of Shilva Sutra by Amma, Saraswati Amma, and I refer her. She has given a wonderful detailed explanation of what Shilva Sutra means, what was Vedic geometry. A lot of Vedic geometry is there. All these symbols are also with definite design, because how I came to understand this was I enlarged one single picture of fish. I blew it up and then used a compass to draw. I was amazed to see it answers all the details that are given in Shilva Sutra.
Bird altar symbol has been adopted by Diaz, right? As Diaz logo.
Bird altar?
Yes. Bird, there is a bird altar. We had a very nice talk in Diaz on this.
Okay. Bird altar, Shilva Sutra, yeah. Whole geometry of it is explained. Every brick, who made the first brick, that is the Ashada bricks, how they placed it in 5 layers. It was placed in 5 layers, and the intermediate in between spaces was filled with sand. It's a very detailed study. That Shilva Sutra picture, this is the bird altar of Uttarkashi, Pural Uttarkashi. I had one more picture of bird altar of Panjal also. That's exactly, it defines every brick. Sorry, I didn't, I thought it may crowd the seal presentation. So in my book I have given that also. How every brick is measured, what is the name of that particular shape, and on what date they assemble that particular layer. It's all described in, yeah? Huh. In the script, I have given a very Vedic approach. Mine is totally Vedic approach to Indus Seals. I have deciphered all the symbols. For example, that last one is Garapatya, the circular symbol. In my analysis, that represents Garapatya because this is a seal of Yagnashala. This is the bird altar. The second picture is Yupa post. The second picture, second seal. Under the Yupa, there is a circular design called Avata, a pit, in which the Yupa was supposed to be, the main post was to be placed. The second picture is Avata with the Yupa. Yupa had a supporting side, this thing, because it...
It's a very ingenious interpretation.
Yeah.
The point is, has the script been said?
No, I don't think so.
Script means these are the symbols, what you call a script. These are, in my analysis, these are pictorial symbols. It's not script of any language. There is, because each one is a different interpretation. Each one has a different interpretation, and we don't see connectivity. It's only the third symbol is the Yagnashala, where the 4 corners, you see, were the corners drawn to post the supportive pillars. And that is Garapatya. Garapatya has always 6 because it represents the 6 seasons. That means Garapatya was to be maintained all through the 6 seasons. That is, entire year it was not supposed to be off. Switched off. So that is Garapatya.
I would like to say something on that. The certainly has not yet been deciphered. There are scholars working on it now for almost 100 years, and the 3 most outstanding scholars on it is a man called Parpola from Finland, and Yuri Korzanov from Russia, and I. Mahadevan from Chennai. And there are others also, of course, working on it, but these, I think, have done the most work on it. And amazingly, they find that the Indus Valley script is related to Proto-Tamil rather than have any connection with Sanskrit. Sanskrit is an Indo-European family of languages. In fact, family is Sanskrit, as you yourself have pointed out, all the Rig Veda and all. There was no written, it was not written, it was all oral tradition.
Yeah, it was just
And in fact, the first sort of scripts in India are Brahmi and Prakrit, and they come out just about the year 1000 AD. Well, we are talking about 3000 BC. They're all carbon dated. So I have to respectfully disagree with you on this. You have given your own interpretation, but it's not a deciphering of that script at all. There are a whole lot of scholars still working on it. And the closest they have come as of now is to relate the Indus Valley script to Proto-Tamil. And a lot of people do believe that the people of the Indus Valley civilization were actually Dravidian.
Yeah. It depends on how Aryan and Dravidian is defined. But anyhow, in my interpretation, I feel when Iravatan Mahadevan has given the fish symbol to be Meena, representing the symbol Meena. If that is Meena in one seal, that logic has to hold good for all seals. It can't be Meena in one and in some other seal, it cannot be something else. That logic, that analysis has to hold good for all seals. When I say Meena is liquid oblation, sacred liquid oblation, it holds good for all seals.
No, but you can't build a link only on the basis of one symbol, Dr. Rekha.
No. All symbols have to have firm reading in all. It should be referred with the same value in all seals. It can't be different it can't give different interpretation and different seals. It can't be just a phonetic representation also because the script had not come yet. I compare this to a 3-year, as I told you, 3-year-old child can speak perfect language grammatically, but the child will not know anything about the script or alphabets or anything. But this Rigveda was at that level, but the understanding, the creation was at its peak. But the script was not there, so they used symbols to convey the ideas. Of course, I'm sorry, this is my...
Naturally.
This is my analysis. I can't...
One moment, I think there are people behind also.
Okay.
The middle one is Dakshinagni?
Huh?
The middle one is Dakshinagni?
No. Middle one, there is no Dakshinagni here. It's only Garapatya that is depicted. Dakshinagni is always bow-shaped. You want to see the picture?
One moment, Dr. Rekha Rao, there are others also wanting to ask questions.
Yeah? Anybody?
1 minute, please, because there are others also want to ask questions behind.
About the Yajna photos that you showed with the Dakshinagni and others, it seems like a very different ritualistic patterns that they follow from what they generally do today. So I'm just wondering if there are anybody or any part of India that still practices this kind of yajna. And
even today, we have...
Same thing is a practice. In fact, just to tell you, Namaste Garahavatyaya, Namaste Dakshinagni, Namahavniyaya, Mahavete, Namo Namaha, that we chant in the last while going around the...
No, because that had, I think, 3 or 4 different Havan Kunda kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we, these days, when you go to a temple and they're doing a Havan, there's just one square,
Yeah, I understood. You mean the circular or 2?
Yeah, the bow and circular.
Because, Garapatya was to be maintained for 1 full year. If there was a case of death or some misfortune in the family, the Garapatya needs to be reinstalled. Then reinstallation is complete procedure of Agnadeya again. So we see 2 circular altars because when they performed yagna now in Panjal also, there are 2 Garapatyas. Because one was reinstalled, from that Garapatya they access fire and install the Garapatya in which oblations are laid. Rohita.
In Indus Seals, is there any depiction of homas? Homa.
Homa is, the Homa is the offering of ghee and oblations of grains or milk products. That is Homa.
Do you have any seals to show us?
I showed you in Pravargya, Agni is offering the Homa in that ritual.
And just one last question.
Ha.
You mentioned that there is invocation of Indra and whoever, and then with the Dakshina, the bow-shaped thing, there is it's a Pitru something. So was the Havan Yajna like invoking deities and also Pitrus, it was done simultaneously? Because these days it's considered Shubhakarya, Ashubhakarya, and Pitru Karya is generally considered Ashubha. So I'm just wondering how they would do it in one single...
Yeah, the first 10 days are inauspicious. They are not mixed up. But after 1 year, there is Parvana Shraddha or Abhyudayika, it is called. Abhyudayika is whenever a child naming ceremony or a marriage ceremony, we first invoke Pitrus. We call it, the first day, Devara Samaradhana we call. In our weddings, at that time, all Pitrus are invoked. So, it's a combined, even in Soma Yajna, morning pressing, first pressing at 6 o'clock is offered to Pitrus. Then the midday pressing is for Indra, and the evening pressing was for Vishwadeva, the other gods. So first, even in Soma Yajna, Pitrus are invoked and they are respected. We have this in all, even in Upanayana, we invoke Pitrus first.
I just have one question. Have a lot of yajna pits been excavated as part of the Indus Valley excavations?
Yajnas?
Pits.
Square.
I mean, if it was a...
Garapatya and... Yeah.
I have a lot of them been excavated as part of the Mohenjo-daro or...
Yeah, the square, the circular altars are there. But they have described it to be well. A well is supposed to be long. These altars are only 5 layered. We can know the difference. These 5 altars are only in 5 layers. They are not long ones. Long ones are called wells. But in the interpretation, they call it wells. Even the small circular one, the Dronachiti is very, very beautifully depicted in, I think Dr. Nazar depicted that picture of the altar, fire altar was depicted. It is called bucket shaped, it's in a semicircular.
So, in those days, it was only phonetic Vedas, is it?
It was?
Only phonetic.
Oral tradition.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was only oral tradition.
But then how it was, in only phonetically it was transmitted?
It was only through undergoing the Vedanga procedure. The Vedas were compilation of 7 Saptarishis. It was all only in memory. All 10,000 verses were only remembered. Even to this day, people remember. They don't keep a book in front and read. Vedic scholars, without anything, they go continuous recite. Even to this day, Vedic tuitions are given only by oral tradition, communication, verbal communication.
But then there were different languages like Brahmi or Sanskrit, whenever it would have come. They were, how phonetic, Sanskrit they say it is the perfect one.
No, there is no change. It is as it was in the earliest form because of the Vedanga training.
Yeah.
I told you about grammar. Every scholar had to understand every pada.
Yeah.
And then how 2 words are joined, that means the grammar part. If there is a word, anyecha, something, aranyecha, gramecha, what is the cha has to be understood. And then how 2 words are connected, and then what tone, how many words are there, how to identify the chandas, all these were part of Vedangas. So only after that training, they were called.
For example, like that, either leap or other form, in say like Tamil, which is considered to be oldest, there are only Gaganga is...
Yeah, there is nothing.
There is nothing.
Kangna,
So how
Chanda.
then it was pronounced at that time?
Yeah.
Veda has got its own grammar called Nirukta.
Yeah, Nirukta, Kalpa.
Yeah, correct. But that came only in Sanskrit time, or was it? Because today also they claim that...
No, the Vedas, in the Vedanga period, the sutras, they were all taught according to the training of Vedangas. But that part is blank in the history. How the earliest form of Sanskrit, the written slabs, that part nobody knows. Which is the very first documentation of Sanskrit writing or Devanagari
Because
writing.
secondly, astrology was also one of the Vedanga.
Yeah, one of the Vedanga.
And at that point of time, there is so much of knowledge and everything. How was it really transmitted to common
in the
man?
seals, there is depiction of full moon, new moon. I have deciphered it in my book. Suppose this is it's a Agnadeya ritual. It was, and even Darshapurnamasa rituals. It was on full moon or new moon. It says, the symbol says, the moon structure, whether it is full moon or new moon, or there are certain months in which 2 full moons come. That's an auspicious month. That is also depicted in seals. So the knowledge of Vedanga imparted complete knowledge of astronomy. People knew about it. Because of that, because of understanding the elaborate procedure, they were able to recite it in the purest form. That standard is even to this day maintained, and Vedas are recited in the same purity. That's the, it's a beauty of Sanskrit Vedas being recited.
I would like to make one point here, that the communication, the tradition which was perfectly transmitted, but it was transmitted only to a small group of people who were the Brahmins. That is why when the Buddha, preached, he used Prakrit, so that it would reach the common people. The common people knew nothing about this. The Brahmins wouldn't share the knowledge even with their wives and daughters.
See, that's why the priestly class was the most important community. That's why in the Indus Seals, the priests occupied 75% of the area. So they were the most important. Even the king's rulers listened to priests, because if Yajna was there, there was no prosperity.
My knowledge is that during the Indus Valley civilization, there were no animal sacrifices. Animal sacrifices came in only after the Vedic period. That is my information. And they also, that in all the excavations, amazingly, there were no horses, which came in after the Vedic period. There were no chariots. And there were, in the Indus Valley civilization, remarkable absence of lethal weapons or lethal instruments.
Yeah, first I showed you the lethal weapon of Rudra, and animal sacrifices were there. We have so many seals, excavations at Kalibangan, and so many animal bones are in altars. The animals were sacrificed in Agni. Archaeological survey. Yeah, archaeological survey also has proof for that. We have all the records for that.
Sites including Harappa and Mohenjo-daro have been inhabited, thereafter continuously. So a lot of what you call yagna sacrifices could have been offered there in the same place, but much later. You see, you can go only on the basis of carbon dating.
Yeah.
I don't know of any Vedic site which has been excavated which is carbon dated to earlier than 1500.
Actually, this is related to Indus Valley. Now that Saraswati Valley civilization, 2000 years before, also is known.
1 minute.
Yes.
Madam.
Okay.
Yeah, madam, please.
I'm so sorry, but I just have 2 questions.
Yeah, sure.
One is there any verbal support for why the priests would be visualized as bulls? Is there anything in the Vedas that would also support that metaphor of why the priests should be visualized as bulls?
Bull, yeah.
That is one question. And the other question is, you said that there were different kind of priests who wore animal skins and they worshipped Shiva. So are you getting that from the seals itself? I mean, where are you getting that information
That
from?
information is very much there in Rig Veda. In the 10th mandala it is there. You can Sorry, I have forgotten the exact number of this thing. In 10th mandala, you can look for Keshins. The term Keshins are Ratyas. Yajurveda has lot of description about the Ratya class. Keshins are the ones who had matted hair. They wore animal skin. They roamed about in forest. They were not into any one profession. They are in groups, and they wore that long hair, they wore the turban. Actually, Ratyapati, you might also refer to Shatarudriya. Ratyapati is the leader of these people who wore animal skin. Rudra is called Ratyapati.
Is it anything similar to Vedic and
Agami?
I find that all the books have been published by you yourself.
Yeah.
Have your articles or on this symbological interpretation of the seals,
Yeah.
rather than this being script of any language, been published in any peer-reviewed journals? And if so, what has been the reaction of the other Indologists who have worked on Aryan civilization, Vedic rituals, Harappan civilization, etc.? Is there any peer review been done?
Yeah, my problem is I'm an independent researcher. Whenever I try to give it to a journal, they ask for which you have to come from some institution. Unfortunately, I'm not affiliated because I'm an independent researcher. I like to hold to my views, my analysis. I like to publish my views. I can't spend my days convincing somebody or wait till the 3 years of wait period for a thesis. I have given it in online blogs, India Facts. My views are shared by 2,500 people, more than that. I have given, even in academia.education, I was rated as a prime member for my independent interpretation. So academia, many scholars have viewed this thing, but they are like going for a journal. I have this blockage. I'm not through any institution. That's all. Yeah. So why the bull is a priest? The very first line of Rig Veda is Agni mile purohitam yajnasya devan ritijam. Agni, you are the priest, celestial priest. Then in the subsequent stanzas, so many places it is repeated, Tvamagne Vrishabha. Agni, you are Vrishabha. Then what is Vrishabha? Vrishabha is the most eminent, the strongest, the cream of community. Dictionary says a lot of meanings for Vrishabha. Then it is always a male animal. The cow is never represented in the seals. It's only the bull because we have patriarchal system. The cows are not represented. So this is the Tvamagne Vrishabha. Even deities are, Indra is also called a Vrishabha. He is also the prime deity. There are address for many deities also as Vrishabha. In the sense, you are the most prominent, you are the most eminent, you are the vigorous, you are the dominant person. So, but Tvamagne Vrishabha is repeated too many times. That's why when the priest made the seals, they used that phrase, Tvamagne Vrishabha. So they depicted it as Vrishabha.
Is there any linkage found? Because that is at least accepted now that yes, there was a 2000 years before Saraswati civilization.
This itself is Saraswati civilization because Vedic sages, they were in the area called Aryavata, Bharatavarsha. Bharatavarsha was between river Saraswati and Drishadvati. So that was the most sacred space, that was called Bharatavarsha. And it is also called, the surrounding region, entire region was Aryavarta, because Aryas are the noble ones. And in my studies, I also realized the term Bharata means the fire igniters. The people in this land of Bharatavarsha, between Saraswati and Drishadvati, they were the igniters of fire. That means they were the people who spread knowledge. So that's how Saraswati is, I have given an article on Saraswati, river Saraswati, how she is eulogized in Rig Veda. All the stanzas I have collected, and I have presented an article on that. So Saraswati was very much there.
Only archaeologically, nothing is found still.
Nothing is found still.
That is why it's not.
Yeah, when I went through the yagnas, I also realized why there were so many Soma yagnas, because there was a continuous drought phase. So they prayed and prayed to Indra to bring rain. Yeah, 1 minute. Dr. Rohit Ishwar wants to reply to your question. He is also an archaeologist. He's a professor of
Sir, I just wanted to reply to your question regarding the bones that have been found in the fire altars. They have been confirmed because, yes, Harappan sites were inhabited a number of times, but the stratigraphical evidences that have been found out by geoarchaeologists, and especially the stratigraphical positions and the C14 dates of these bones, and the analysis by zooarchaeologists as well as anthropologists from Deccan College, MS University, and Archaeological Survey of India, has confirmed the position of the presence of the bones in the fire altar. Similarly, symmetry R36 and H, which Mortimer Wheeler had said that the Aryan invasion theory what hit this thing, and now as my teacher, Professor Vasant Shinde, has, due to the DNA analysis, has proved that it is an indigenous race and it does not belong. But symmetry R36 and symmetry H, later it was considered that they belong to the late Harappan phase but not to the mature Harappan phase. So which means to say that the archaeological investigations are quite on scientific lines. The investigations made by Pennsylvania University by Gregory Purcell has also confirmed it, and these have been published in Current Science as well as Nature. Thank you. The DNA analysis?
Yes, DNA analysis has been misinterpreted in a very motivational manner.
Maybe an interpretation. Thank you.
There is a lot of what is called reverse engineering which is now taking place.
Yeah, but in my studies, I have.
One question I like to ask: if really the Indus Valley civilization was anterior to the Vedic age, the Vedic age was anterior, then the script would have been in Sanskrit. Why is it now in an undeciphered language? It is still not being deciphered.
Yeah,
there are scholars working at it for almost 100 years, and the closest related link I found is with Tamil, not with Sanskrit.
Tamil is so very different from in the symbols.
Tamil, unless there are at least 100 words that in some way match each other, there is no link that is established. Now you are establishing a link really based on not very strong evidence. That is my point. Much as I respect you.
Yeah, the Vedas are the support for the industry, because we see the picture of deities, we see the picture of Chanda, all those.
That's a matter of interpretation.
Yeah.
Not a matter of, because can you tell me any Vedic site which has been carbon dated to earlier than 1500? I don't know of anyone. Indus Valley is all carbon dated to 2500 to 3000.
Alan, sir.
No, I think, thank you so much. I think we have troubled you a great deal today. Today you got your peer review. We are very grateful to you. You have taken so much of trouble. You have made such a fine collection of photos. One thing I wanted to mention, maybe the one thing missing, there is a very fine find in the Indus Valley civilization of a priest. A fully dressed priest who looks remarkably like the priest in the Sumerian civilization. But this was found in the Indus Valley. But all that you have told us really was very, very revealing. It just also indicates how much of hard work you have done, how much of scholarly research, and even though you have tread a lonely path, you have achieved a great deal, yes. And I'm really grateful that you came, you accepted my invitation, and it's really wonderful. Now, you must also recommend other scholars to us in this field, because we would like to present others too. Thank you so much. Maybe next time you could give us a Bharatanatyam dance also.
Thank you, sir. So before we conclude, on behalf of NGMA Bangalore, I thank Ms. Rekha Rao for your insightful presentation today. Now may I request Ms. Nazneen Banu, NGMA Director, and Alan Nazareth, sir, to come onto the dais to present a small token of memento to...
I'll come there. He's eating.